The phone call came at 3 in the morning. Sarah Martinez stared at the unknown number flashing on her screen, her heart already racing. In the world of professional wrestling, calls at this hour meant only one thing: someone was hurt or someone was about to be. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice barely a whisper. "Sarah, it's Dana. We have a situation." The words hit her like a steel chair to the chest. Dana White never called personally unless something had gone terribly wrong. Sarah sat up in her cramped Los Angeles apartment, the city lights bleeding through her thin curtains. "What kind of situation?" "Ronda's refusing to fight. Says she won't step in the ring with you. The cameras caught everything at tonight's press conference, and now it's everywhere. Twitter's exploding, the sponsors are panicking, and we've got 48 hours to figure this out before the biggest pay-per-view of the year." Sarah's mind raced. Ronda Rousey, the most feared woman in combat sports, refusing to fight her. It made no sense. They'd been building this match for months, the ultimate showdown between the unstoppable force and the immovable object. Did she say why? That's what we need to find out. But Sarah, there's something else. The footage from tonight. There's something on those cameras that nobody was supposed to see, something that changes everything. The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone, her reflection ghost-like in the black screen. Outside, Los Angeles hummed with its usual midnight energy. Sirens in the distance, the rumble of late-night traffic on the freeway, the occasional shout from the street below. But inside her apartment, silence pressed down like a weight. She pulled up social media, her fingers trembling slightly. The hashtag was already trending. Ronda refuses. Video clips from the press conference played on loop. Ronda's face going pale, her sudden exit from the stage, the confused murmur of reporters. But it was the comments that made Sarah's blood run cold. Did you see her face when she looked at Sarah? Something's not right here. Ronda looked terrified. Terrified. The word echoed in Sarah's mind. Ronda Rousey, who had demolished every opponent in her path, who had never backed down from anyone or anything, was terrified of fighting her. But why? Sarah had grown up in East LA, in a neighborhood where fighting wasn't a choice, it was survival. Her mother worked double shifts at the garment factory, while her father bounced between construction jobs and unemployment. The local gym became her sanctuary, a place where the chaos of home couldn't reach her. She learned to throw punches before she learned to drive, and by 18, she was already making a name for herself in underground fighting circuits. The transition to professional wrestling had been natural. Her raw talent caught the attention of scouts, and within 2 years, she was headlining shows across California. Her style was different, more brutal, more real than the choreographed spectacle most fans expected. When she fought, people believed it. When she bled, it was genuine. When she won, she'd earned every second of it. But this was different. This was Ronda Rousey, and Ronda didn't refuse fights. Ever. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from her trainer, Miguel. "Saw the news. You okay?" She typed back, "Meet me at the gym in an hour." The 24-hour gym on Sunset Boulevard was nearly empty at 4 a.m. Just the usual insomniacs and shift workers trying to burn off stress before heading home. Sarah found Miguel already there, hitting the heavy bag with methodical precision. At 62, he moved like a man half his age, each punch a lesson in controlled violence. "So," he said without stopping his rhythm, "want to tell me what really happened tonight?" Sarah wrapped her hands slowly, the ritual as familiar as breathing. "I wish I knew." Everything was normal until the final question. Reporter asked Ronda how she felt about facing me, and she just froze. Like she'd seen a ghost. People don't freeze without reason, especially not people like her. Miguel finally stopped hitting the bag and turned to face her. His weathered face carried the scars of a lifetime in combat sports. a crooked nose broken too many times to count, a scar above his left eye from a particularly brutal sparring session in his youth. But his eyes were sharp, calculating. "There's something you're not telling me." Sarah hesitated. There was something, but it sounded crazy even in her own mind. During the press conference, when the cameras were focused on Ronda, Sarah had noticed something else. In the back of the room, partially hidden behind a pillar, stood a man she recognized but couldn't place. Tall, wearing an expensive suit that didn't quite fit the casual atmosphere of the event. When Ronda's eyes found him in the crowd, that's when everything changed. There was someone there tonight. Someone who didn't belong. Miguel's expression darkened. What kind of someone? "I don't know." But Ronda saw him, and that's when she lost it. "Miguel, what if this isn't about the fight at all? What if this is about something else entirely?" Before Miguel could answer, Sarah's phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed a name that made her stomach drop. Ronda Rousey. "Answer it," Miguel whispered. Sarah's finger hovered over the screen. Whatever was on the other end of this call would change everything. In the background, the gym's fluorescent lights hummed their monotonous tune, and somewhere in the distance, a police siren wailed through the LA night. She answered. "Sarah." Ronda's voice was barely recognizable, shaky, vulnerable in a way that seemed impossible for someone so strong. "I'm here. We need to meet, tonight. There's something you need to know about why I can't fight you. Something about your past that you've never been told." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Her past was an open book, or so she'd thought. Born in LA, raised by working-class parents, discovered fighting as a teenager. What could Ronda possibly know that she didn't? "What are you talking about?" "Not over the phone. Meet me at the old Mayan Theater downtown. 1 hour. Come alone, and Sarah, be careful who you trust. The man at the press conference tonight, he's been watching you for a very long time." The line went dead again. Sarah stared at her phone, her mind reeling. The Mayan Theater had been closed for renovations for months, a beautiful Art Deco building sitting empty in the heart of downtown LA. Why would Ronda want to meet there? Miguel was watching her carefully. What did she say? "She wants to meet. Says there's something about my past I don't know." "And then you're going." Sarah looked at her reflection in the gym's mirror. 26 years old, 5 feet 8 inches of muscle and determination, with scars that told the story of every fight she'd ever been in. She'd built her entire identity around knowing exactly who she was and where she came from. The idea that there were secrets, hidden pieces of her own story, was almost too much to process. "I have to." "Then I'm coming with you." She said, "Come alone." And I'm saying that's not happening. Sarah, listen to me. I've been in this business for 40 years. I've seen fighters disappear, careers destroyed, people hurt in ways that have nothing to do with what happens in the ring. If Ronda Rousey is scared enough to refuse a fight, then you should be scared enough to bring back up. The drive downtown took 25 minutes through empty streets. LA at 5 a.m. was a different city entirely. Quieter, more honest somehow. The usual traffic was replaced by delivery trucks and early commuters, the kind of people who kept the city running while everyone else slept. Sarah drove her beat-up Honda Civic, Miguel riding shotgun, both of them lost in their own thoughts. The Mayan Theater sat like a sleeping giant on South Hill Street, its ornate facade dark, except for a single light in what used to be the lobby. Construction scaffolding covered parts of the building, and yellow caution tape fluttered in the pre-dawn breeze. Sarah parked across the street, studying the building for any sign of movement. "You sure about this?" Miguel asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." They crossed the street together, Miguel hanging back as they approached the theater's main entrance. The heavy wooden doors were slightly ajar, which should have been impossible given the building's renovation status. Sarah pushed one open, the hinges creaking in protest. Inside, the theater was a maze of shadows and construction equipment. Dust sheets covered the old seats, and the stage was littered with tools and building materials. But there, in the center of the orchestra section, a single spotlight illuminated two figures. Ronda stood with her back to the entrance, her usually perfect posture slumped with exhaustion or defeat. Across from her, in one of the few uncovered seats, sat the man from the press conference. Up close, Sarah could see he was older than she'd initially thought, maybe 55, with silver hair and the kind of expensive watch that cost more than most people's cars. "Sarah," Ronda called without turning around, "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I'm here. Now tell me what this is about." Ronda finally turned, and Sarah was shocked by what she saw. The most dominant fighter of her generation looked broken, her eyes red-rimmed and haunted. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight that seemed to age her years in seconds. "Sarah, what I'm about to tell you is going to change everything you think you know about yourself, about your career, about why you're really here." The man in the expensive suit stood up slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. When he spoke, his voice carried a slight accent that Sarah couldn't place. "Miss Martinez, my name is Vincent Castellano. I've been looking for you for a very long time." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She'd heard that name before, whispered in the kind of conversations that stopped when she entered the room. Vincent Castellano wasn't just a businessman. He was connected to things that existed in the shadows of professional sports, the kind of things that could make or break careers with a single phone call. "I don't know what you want, but—" "Your father worked for me," Castellano interrupted, 27 years ago before you were born. He was supposed to deliver something very important, something worth millions of dollars. Instead, he disappeared, and so did what belonged to me." The theater seemed to spin around Sarah. Her father, who she'd been told died in a construction accident when she was 2, had worked for Vincent Castellano, had been involved in something criminal. "That's impossible. My father was a construction worker." "Your father was many things, Miss Martinez, but most importantly, he was a man who made a promise he couldn't keep. And now, 27 years later, that debt has come due." Ronda stepped forward, her face etched with pain. "Sarah, he's been using me. Using my connections in the fighting world to track you down. He knew that eventually, if you kept winning, kept climbing the ranks, you'd end up facing me. And when you did—" "When she did," Castellano finished, "I'd finally have found Roberto Martinez's daughter, the only person who might know where he hid what he stole from me." Sarah's mind raced. Her mother had never talked much about her father, always changing the subject when Sarah asked questions. She'd assumed it was grief, the pain of losing someone too young. But now, pieces of a puzzle she didn't even know existed were falling into place. "I don't know anything about what my father may or may not have done. I was 2 years old when he died." "Died?" Castellano laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Miss Martinez, your father didn't die in a construction accident. Your father is very much alive, and he's been hiding from me for 27 years. The question is, does he love his daughter enough to come out of hiding to save her?" The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Her father was alive. Everything her mother had told her, every story about his tragic death, every tear shed over his memory, it had all been a lie. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Then explain this." Castellano pulled out his phone and showed Sarah a photograph. It was grainy, obviously taken from a distance, but unmistakable. A man in his 50s, with Sarah's dark eyes and strong jawline, standing outside a small cafe. The timestamp on the photo was from 3 days ago. "He's been watching your career, Sarah. Every fight, every victory. He's proud of what you've become, but he's also terrified that his past would catch up with you. Well, it has. Sarah sank into one of the uncovered theater seats, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. Everything she thought she knew about her life, her identity, her motivation for fighting, it was all built on a foundation of lies. "What do you want from me?" "Simple. Your father took something that belongs to me. I want it back. You're going to help me get it." "And if I refuse?" Castellano's smile was cold as winter. "Then your fighting career ends tonight. One phone call from me, and you'll never step in a ring again. Worse, your mother's little apartment in East LA might become a very dangerous place to live." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Sarah looked at Ronda, who was staring at the floor, unable to meet her eyes. "This is why you refused to fight me. He told me that if I went through with the match, if I gave you the platform of a high-profile fight, he'd make sure I never saw my family again. Sarah, I'm sorry. I wanted to warn you, but you were protecting yourself." "Dee, I was protecting everyone I love, just like you're going to do now." Sarah stood up slowly, her mind working through the implications. If she helped Castellano find her father, she'd be betraying the man who'd sacrificed everything to protect her. But if she didn't, innocent people would suffer. What exactly did my father take? Information, names, dates, financial records. Evidence of certain business arrangements that some very powerful people would prefer remained private. Your father was supposed to destroy it all, but instead he kept it as insurance. Now I need that insurance back. And you think I know where it is? I think your father loves you enough to have left you clues. I think somewhere in your life, in your memories, in the things he left behind, there's a trail that leads to what I need. Wanda. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to remember anything from her early childhood that might be relevant. But she'd been so young when he supposedly died, and her mother had been so careful to remove all traces of him from their lives. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. After that, I start making phone calls, and your world begins to crumble. Oh, and Sarah, don't even think about going to the police. The kind of people I work with have friends in very high places. Castellano walked toward the theater's exit, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. At the door, he turned back. "One more thing. Your father isn't the only one who's been watching your career. I've been watching too, waiting for the right moment. You fight like him, you know. Same intensity, same refusal to give up. It's going to make this so much more interesting." He disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness, leaving Sarah and Ronda alone in the theater. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I'm sorry," Ronda finally whispered. "I'm so sorry I dragged you into this." "You didn't drag me into anything. This started before I was even born." Sarah walked toward the exit, her mind spinning with questions and possibilities. Outside, Miguel was waiting by the car, his face grim. "How much did you hear?" "Enough. Sarah, we need to get you somewhere safe." "Safe doesn't exist anymore. Not until I figure out what my father took and why it's worth destroying lives over." The drive back to Sarah's apartment was silent, but her mind was anything but quiet. 24 hours to unravel 27 years of lies and secrets. 24 hours to find a father she'd thought was dead and evidence of crimes she didn't understand. As they pulled up to her building, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. Her mother's car was parked outside, and the lights in her apartment were on. Her mother never visited unannounced, and certainly not at 6 in the morning. "Miguel, something's wrong." They took the stairs 2 at a time, Sarah's keys already in her hand, but when she reached her door, it was slightly open, the lock clearly forced. Inside, she could hear voices, her mother's, strained and frightened, and another voice she didn't recognize. Sarah pushed the door open slowly, Miguel right behind her. In her living room, her mother sat on the couch, her hands shaking as she held a cup of coffee. Across from her, in Sarah's favorite chair, sat a woman in her 40s with short blonde hair and the kind of posture that screamed law enforcement. "Sarah," her mother said, her voice barely above a whisper, "this is Agent Rebecca Torres with the FBI. She says she needs to talk to us about your father." And Agent Torres stood up, her badge clearly visible on her belt. "Miss Martinez, I'm sorry to intrude, but we have a situation. Vincent Castellano contacted you tonight, didn't he?" Sarah's mind reeled. How could the FBI possibly know about her meeting with Castellano unless... "You've been watching me. We've been watching him. For 3 years we've been building a case against Castellano and his organization. Your father's information is the key to bringing down one of the largest money laundering operations on the West Coast." Sarah's mother looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I lied to you about everything." "Mom, what's going on?" "Your father isn't dead, baby. He's been in witness protection for 27 years, waiting for the day when it would be safe to come home. That day was supposed to be next month, when we finally had enough evidence to arrest Castellano. But somehow, he found out." Agent Torres stepped forward. "Miss Martinez, your father didn't steal anything from Castellano. He was working undercover for us, gathering evidence of financial crimes. When his cover was blown, we had to fake his death and relocate him to keep him safe. And you never told me? We couldn't risk it. The fewer people who knew the truth, the safer everyone was. But now Castellano knows who you are, and he's going to use you to draw your father out of hiding." Sarah sank onto her couch next to her mother, the weight of revelation after revelation finally catching up with her. Her father was alive, had been alive all these years, working with the FBI to bring down criminals. Her entire life had been shaped by a lie designed to protect her. Where is he now? Safe house in Oregon. "But Sarah, if Castellano is threatening you, your father will do anything to protect you, even if it means sacrificing himself and destroying years of investigation. So what do we do?" Agent Torres sat down across from them, her expression serious but not without compassion. "We have a plan, but it's dangerous. We want you to help us set a trap for Castellano. Make him think you've found what he's looking for. Draw him into the open where we can arrest him. Adodine, and if something goes wrong, then a lot of very bad people stay free, and your family will never be safe." Sarah looked at her mother, seeing her own fear reflected in the older woman's eyes. But underneath the fear was something else, a strength that Sarah had always admired but never fully understood. Her mother had carried this secret for 27 years, had raised a daughter alone while knowing her husband was alive but unreachable. What exactly would I have to do?" "Castellano expects you to find clues about where your father hid the evidence. We're going to give you fake clues, make him think you're leading him to what he wants. When he shows up to collect, we'll be waiting. And my father will finally be able to come home." The words hung in the air like a promise and a threat. Sarah had spent her entire life fighting for things, victories in the ring, respect in her career, a better life for herself and her mother. But this was different. This was fighting for the chance to meet the man who'd shaped her life from the shadows, the father she'd mourned but who had never actually died. "When do we start?" Agent Torres smiled for the first time since Sarah had met her. "Right now. We have 18 hours before Castellano expects an answer from you. That's 18 hours to set up the most important fight of your life." As the sun rose over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sarah Martinez prepared for a battle that had nothing to do with the ring, but everything to do with who she really was. Somewhere in Oregon, a man she'd never met but had always loved was waiting to come home. Somewhere in the city, Vincent Castellano was planning to destroy everything she cared about. But Sarah had been fighting her entire life, and she wasn't about to stop now. Not when the stakes had never been higher, and not when victory meant finally understanding the truth about herself and her family. The real fight was just beginning. If you're hooked on Sarah's incredible story and want to see how this dangerous game with the FBI unfolds, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment below. Do you think Sarah can outsmart Castellano and finally meet her father? And don't forget to smash that like button to help this channel grow. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this story ends. It's going to blow your mind. Subscribe now and let's find out together if Sarah's biggest fight will be her last.